Hey everybody, Professor Steins here, and in this video we're going to talk a little bit about Flexslider and how you can implement it into your website. Flexslider is a very common picture slider. You'll see it used on a lot of different websites. It can be skinned a lot of different ways to look pretty different. There's some other examples in here of how you can set it up, but we're going to go with just kind of the basic slider here to see if we can't get something that looks pretty similar to this on our page. I've already kind of started up a little website to test this out on. Neat pictures about space with a little bit of a menu here and some pictures that I just pulled off the internet that I thought looked really cool. And so we kind of got pale blue dot, a picture of kind of walking into a black hole, and then sort of like this pink landscape here. And in the HTML, we just basically got a little bit of W3 CSS to get this started, our meta tag for responsive design, and then a little bit of scaffolding here, just comment on the W3 website using sort of a drop-down menu that was more or less copy and pasted out and has some other links to various cool links of places to go, such as the picture a day, astronomy picture of the day, where you can kind of see a picture from NASA. It's a pretty neat thing, and you can kind of go backwards in time and see the different pictures of the day from in the past. Anyway, we want to make a slideshow out of these three pictures using Flexslider. So we'll need to download Flexslider in order to get a look at it. When you take a look at the code that comes up, and you kind of unzip the file, or at least just look into the file, what you'll notice is that there's a lot of files here. Uh, Flexslider is using some advanced techniques to create itself. If you want to get into this realm, you need to look up Node.js. It's a popular front-end development system. Bower being a dependency manager, Node modules sort of being part of that. And so there's kind of like a lot here that might get you a little bit lost. There's a README file, of course, and that can kind of help you out in your path to understanding of what all's here. But I often recommend just looking at the demo and choosing one of the examples of the one that you want to do and start looking at that. They also kind of give you a little bit here down at the bottom on what you need to do to get it working. In my experience, though, pretty much all you need to do is come back to the root folder and then look at your folder of your code. Right now, I just have my index file with my images in it. And some of the things that you'll need to pull out into your site are going to be the fonts folder. This will give us the little pictures for the left and right symbols when we're ready to use those, as well as the control characters at the bottom and in some of the other examples. You'll also need to pull out the CSS file, flexslider.css, and you'll also need to pull out the jQuery flexslider min.js. Min means it's minimized. So if you were to take a look at this JavaScript code, you would see that it is fairly condensed, doesn't have a lot of spaces, no comments, and so it's a little bit difficult to kind of figure out exactly what's going on in here. But if it works, you don't need to know, right? Oh, security guy in me says that's wrong. Anyway, so we have those files included in our site. This is the structure that the jQuery rotator is going to expect. And so we can either kind of just copy this out or we can implement this into our page. There'll need to be an outer div for the class Flexslider to hold a list of image tags that are going to be our slides. And that UL is going to have class equals slides. So let's put that in our site. We have a div, class equals Flexslider, and the beginning and end of that here. And then we'll have a UL, class equals slides, for each of the individual pictures. And then for this unordered list, we're going to have list items for each picture itself. So we need to kind of move all these pictures in to be part of that structure. And I'm going to do a little bit of copy and paste in here. Do realize I'm going pretty quick, and we'll just do a little bit of indentation to help make it a little more readable. There. So we have basically that structure. We have a div class equals Flexslider for the outside. We have an unordered list called slides for the inside, and then list items for each of the pictures inside of it. And that looks pretty good. The JavaScript is going to be jQuery, and in order to do this, we also need to include the jQuery library. We did pull these files into our folder, our Flexslider and our jQuery file, but we actually do need to include them in our code as well. So we need a link up here at the top, rel equals style sheet, for our Flexslider.css file. If you're creating folders and a more complex structure in your website, whatever you use in the hyperlink reference has to match. So if you put it into another folder or something like that, you'll need to do that. And you can kind of look, if you look into this file, this one's not quite as condensed, but it does read from the fonts folder. So if you rename that fonts folder to be something else, or you move it into another location, you'll want to double check to make sure that the font family here points to the right location for this font face. Everything else should be pretty good. These are just all transformations. There used to be an image tag in there, or a background image tag, but I don't think it has that anymore. Instead, they've opted for using these font controls. So just make sure that this folder matches, or this matches the structure of your page, and it does. We copied over the fonts folder, and so all these files are in there. We don't need to worry about those. We also need to include a script tag down at the bottom, and this will be before your closing body tag. You'll want to include a script tag for that JavaScript. So it's jQuery.flexslider -min.js. I'm pretty sure, and I'm gonna double check that. jQuery.flexslider-min.js. Yeah. We also need to include a script tag for the jQuery library. And this one in particular, it can sometimes be hard to know which version of jQuery certain things use. If you look for jQuery CDN, you'll see the content delivery network for jQuery, and there'll be a couple different versions in here. Whenever you're kind of looking at those, you should always kind of like take a look and just see maybe like if there's a suggested version of jQuery to use, and that way that you know you're using the right one. So looks like jQuery dependency here is 1.11. So when we go to the CDN, we'll want to make sure that we use that version in our code. And when you click on it here, it'll give you a script tag that you can just sort of copy out and put in your site. You want to make sure that you put this script tag in before you call anything that uses jQuery, such as jQuery flexslider.min.js, because this uses jQuery. It needs the jQuery framework in order to work. Then we have to include another script tag, so many script tags, and this script tag is where we're going to put the initializing code here. So this is the code that comes off of your slider. If you're using one of the other examples, this will be a little bit different, and you'll want to put that in there. And jQuery is just a framework of JavaScript, so this is JavaScript. Window.load is when the page loads. We're going to execute a function. That function is going to be to look for class equals Flexslider, which is going to be this div right here, and it's going to call the Flexslider initializing class with the animation slide. So it's going to make a slide animation when it creates the Flexslider based on the div for this class. Again, whatever initialization code you use for Flexslider might be slightly different. jQuery uses a CSS-like syntax to do page selection. So in this case, we're looking for class equals Flexslider, which is this div. So we'll test it out. We'll go back to Space Pictures and hit refresh. And you may get a little bit of a bug here. Things may look a little bit weird. This one looks like it's timing out a bit. And no, just slow. But it looks like it worked. So could be that it took a minute for this jQuery to load. If you actually download this file and put it in your solution, it may work a little bit faster instead of just going straight to the CDN. In order to do that, you just need to go to this address that's here. Go to this file. Again, most JavaScript files are going to be condensed, so jQuery framework is fairly condensed, and you can just do a save as and record this into your folder. So we can just store it here, jQuery.1.12.4.min.js. It's now going to be in our folder as a file instead of reaching out to an external site. In that case, you can just remove the part that goes off to the other site. We're not really worried about any of this other information with the checking, and we can kind of just simplify it down to look like this. In this case, if there was any kind of delay from the CDN, it should be gone, and it looked like that time it loaded very fast, and we still sort of get our picture rotator that works the same as it did with Flexslider, which is pretty neat. If you want to change the size of it or anything else like that, you just need to identify this class. You can either add another class to it, you can give it an ID. I don't typically recommend doing inline styles on things, but anything that you kind of add to that outer container will help shape how the Flexslider works. So anyway, I hope you liked the video. Hope you found it useful and helps you get your JavaScript rotator off the ground. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Have a good one. Bye.